topic is sickle cell anemia, and I am myself Dr. Vaishali Jain Chaudhary. I am Assistant Department of Pediatrics, Government Medical College, Surat. So we continue with the topic sickle cell anemia. Just basic introduction. It is an inherited form of anemia, a condition in which there aren't enough healthy red blood cells to carry adequate oxygen throughout your body. That means the healthy red blood cells are inadequate. So abnormal red blood cells are there, which are sickle shaped, and that's why it's called sickle cell anemia. Normally, your red blood cells are flexible and round and moving easily through your blood vessels. In sickle cell anemia, the red blood cells becomes rigid and sticky and are shaped like a sickles or crescent moons. These irregularly shaped cells can get stuck in the small blood vessels, which can slow or block blood flow and oxygen to the parts of the body. That's why it's called sickle cell anemia. The definition is sickle cell disease. It is a genetic disorder that affects erythrocytes, causing them to become a sickle or a crescent shape. The effect of this condition due to an abnormality of the hemoglobin molecules found in the erythrocytes. Now, genetics of sickle cell disease. The changes in cell structure arises from a change in the structure of hemoglobin. Okay, why there is a change in the shape, like spherical to the sickle, because of the change in the structure of the hemoglobin, which is caused by mutation in the beta globin chain. In the sixth position, glutamic acid is replaced by valine. So a single change in amino acid causes a hemoglobin to aggregate. Then these red blood cells typically live 9 to 120 days normally, but the sickle cells only survive 10 to 20 days. So that's why it's caused anemia, because lifespan of the RBC are very short. Okay. This is a diagrammatic presentation of the normal and sickle cell. It's a normal RBC. The normal RBC, which in DNA protein glutamate is changed by valine because mutation at the sixth gene of the hemoglobin. Now, characteristic of sickle cells. Normal RBCs are 120 days lifespan. HB has normal oxygen carrying capacity and 12 to 14 gram per deciliter of hemoglobin is there. In sickle cell, lifespan is 1/4, only 30 to 40 days of the lifespan. HB has decreased oxygen carrying capacity and 6 to 9 gram per deciliter of hemoglobin is there. The factors affecting the rate and degree of sickling. The amount of sickle hemoglobin and its interaction with the other hemoglobin chains in the cell. Fetal hemoglobin inhibits polymerization of the HbS. Hence, newborn do not manifest until 5 to 6 months of age. Normally, there are HbS and HbF. HbF has no gene mutation in their chain. So, HbF is a protecting factor, and although it decreases or inhibits polymerization HbS. So, that's why sickle cell anemia cannot appear their symptoms before the age of 6 months because of the HbF. It is a protective phenomena. The rate of polymerization is strongly dependent on the hemoglobin concentration per cell, example MCHC. Then decrease in pH. Acidosis cause more sickling. The length of the time red cells are exposed to a low oxygen tension. Sickling of red cells is confined to a microvascular beds where the blood flow is sluggish, like spleen and bone marrow. That's why splenic crisis and aplastic crisis is occur, because there is low oxygen tension in this tissue because there is a microvascular beds. So that's why there are the factors where sickling is more prominent. Normally, normal RBC is go easily through the blood vessels, as normal RBC is a spherical in shape. Like in sickle shape, the sickle cell blocking blood flow because they are stuck into blood vessels and cause blocking of the vessels and cause painful crises. Now, types of sickle cell disease. First, sickle cell anemia. There is a homozygous state of the HbS, both as sickle hemoglobin. Second, sickle cell trait. The heterozygous carrier state for a HbS. One is normal and other is HbS. If one parent has sickle cell anemia and other is normal, then all children will have sickle cell trait. If one parent has sickle cell anemia and other has sickle cell trait, there is a 50% chance of having disease in either with each pregnancy. Okay. Now, sickle cell disease. Go through a diagrammatic presentation by it. But for now, if one parent has sickle cell trait and other does not carry the sickle hemoglobin at all, मतलब कि वो normal है. Like one parent is sickle cell trait and other is a normal person, then none of the children will have sickle cell anemia. And there is a 1 in 2, like 50% chance of any given child will be get one copy of HbAs gene and therefore have a sickle cell trait. So basically, if one parent is sickle cell trait and the other is normal, then chances of baby, 50% of baby may have trait, but no one can manifest as severe anemia, sickle cell anemia. It is that any given child will given to HbAA gene like normal and be completely unaffected. So, with one parent sickle cell trait normal, then chances of 50% of sickle cell trait and 50% of the normal of the baby. Okay. Then the second scenario, if both parents have sickle cell trait, there is 1 in 4th chance of any given child have been born with sickle cell anemia, because both having sickle cell trait, so they will transmit their gene to the baby. So 20 that baby mother and father has not sickle cell anemia, they have only trait, but the baby can be manifest as anemia, and rest 50% may be manifest as trait, and 25% chance there will be a normal. Okay. Third case, then the one parent has sickle cell trait and other has sickle cell anemia. Okay, we have seen one trait, one normal, one trait, both trait. Now one trait and one anemia, like one disease. There is a 50% chance that the baby gets sickle cell trait and 50% chance that sickle cell anemia. No children will be unaffected. Okay, then the third scenario, that the one parent is trait and the other parent is anemic, then chances of 50% having anemia, sickle cell anemia, and 50% having sickle cell trait. No normal child will be in the family. And fourth condition, if parent has sickle cell anemia and the other is completely unaffected, other is normal, then all children will have sickle cell trait. None will be have sickle cell anemia. The parent who has sickle cell anemia can only pass the sickle hemoglobin gene to each of their condition, each of their children. Okay, so there is a sickle cell anemia, father is totally unaffected, then children who receive are only trait, not anemic. Okay, not sickle cell anemia, there are only trait. They possibility to their pass on to the generation. Okay, this is a diagrammatic presentation. When both parents have sickle cell disease, the red is a manifestation of the disease, then all child have 100% chance to have sickle cell disease. Okay, 0% chance cell trait, because there is sickle cell anemia is already there. One parent has sickle cell disease and the other has sickle cell. Red one is for a disease, and this so 50% chance to have a sickle cell trait and 50% have sickle cell disease. Now, have sickle cell trait, then 25% of chance to have sickle cell disease, 50% of the chance to have sickle cell disease, sickle cell trait, and 25% of chance to be baby normal. Then when one parent has the sickle cell trait and the other is unaffected, 50% chance have to be unaffected normal baby and 50% of the chance have to be sickle cell trait. But no one have any manifestation of the sickle cell anemia. So we are trying to improve our side to the sickle cell trait to the unaffected. So that's why matrimonial side sickle cell status is very important. Now mechanism. Sickle hemoglobin HbS sticks together and then forms from the inside the RBC. Now RBC becomes inflexible and the sickle shape, unable to squeeze through a blood vessels, and inside the small blood vessels they block the vessels. Less oxygen tissue to the body. RBCs containing HbS have a shorter lifespan. We have previously seen 20 to 40 days. So normally 20 days, and then there is a chronic. That's why it's called sickle cell anemia. Okay. Now the symptoms. They vary from person to person and change over the time. They include because there is sickle cell break apart easily and die, leaving you with enough red blood cells. Red blood cells usually live about 1 and sickle cell 10 to 20, 40 days, leaving a shortage of the red blood cells, and without enough red blood cells, we can't get oxygen in the body and feel energized and causing fatigue. And fatigue is the main symptoms. Second, episode of pain called crisis. A major symptoms of the sickle cell anemia. Pain develops when sickle-shaped RBC block blood flow through tiny blood vessels to your chest, abdomen and joints. And pain can also occur in the bones. Now the pain varies in intensity and can last for a few hours to a few weeks. Some people have only a few hours and others have a dozen or more crises in a year. Okay. Then delayed growth and vision problem. Then RBC provide your body with the oxygen and nutrients you need for the growth. A shortage of healthy RBC in causing delayed puberty in teenagers. And in vision problem, that our blood vessels in the retinal blood vessels plugged with sickle cells and then cause damage to the retina, and so it was visual problem. Now fever. Fever is a most important symptoms in the sickle cell patient, because fever greater than 101 degree fever, even in the absence of the other signs of infection, should be evaluated carefully. High risk of overwhelming bacterial infection or sepsis should be treated empirically until the culture results are available. So basically fever with sickle cell anemia cannot taken for granted, and we have to vigorously monitor for it. Now crisis in sickle cell anemia. There are 4 crises: vaso-occlusive crisis or pain crisis, that represent episode of hypoxic injury and infarction associated with severe pain in the affected region. Most common involved site are bone, lung, liver, brain, spleen and penis. Okay, so vaso-occlusive crisis mostly occur in the bone, and the patient came with the complaint of bone pain, and basically in a bone, then the spleen and penis also are there. Acute chest syndrome. The life-threatening complication causes chest pain, fever and difficulty in breathing. Acute chest syndrome can be caused by a lung infection or by a sickle cell blocking blood vessels in the lungs. So it might require emergency medical treatment with antibiotics and other treatments. Okay, basically we start with oxygen support, then we maintain the hydration, and then we watch for the hemoglobin. If we required, we could transmit PCV also, and then antibiotic for proper antibiotic as per the culture. Now sequestration crisis or splenic crisis. It occurred in the children with intact spleen, because it was a splenic crisis basically. So massive sequestration of the sickle red blood cells leading to a rapid splenic enlargement, hypovolemia and sometimes shock. So patient present with shock and huge splenomegaly, and it is sickle cell patient and have a painful spleen and splenomegaly is there, then we have to must consider for a sequestration crisis. Then aplastic crisis, that is a transient cessation of the bone marrow erythropoiesis due to acute infection of the erythroid progenitor cells by parvovirus B19. So parvo B19 causes aplastic crisis, normally red blood cell aplasia, and that's why cause aplastic crisis. Reticulocytes disappear from the peripheral blood, causing a sudden and rapid worsening of the anemia of sickle cell anemia. Okay, that's cause aplastic crisis. Now complication. We have seen about the symptoms, because in symptoms we have worried about the pain, fever, and other crises. Okay. Now complication. Sickle cell anemia can lead to the complication include first stroke, which is a very important complication. A stroke can occur if sickle cell block blood flow and area of the brain. Signs of strokes include seizures, weakness or numbness of arms and legs, and sudden speech difficulties and loss of consciousness or a vision problem. Okay. Now second, people with sickle cell anemia can develop high blood pressure in their lungs. That's called pulmonary hypertension. These complications usually affect the adults rather than the children. Shortness of breath and fatigue are common symptoms of this condition, and which can be a fatal condition. Okay. Normally, sickle cell anemia, its main problem, basically it's stuck to the blood vessels, whether it is a brain or it is a pulmonary circulation. If it is stuck in the brain, then it can develop as a stroke. It can, if it's stuck in the pulmonary vessels, then it can be present as a pulmonary hypertension. Okay. Then third, organ damage. Sickle cell that block blood flow through blood vessels immediately deprive the affected organ and the blood and oxygenation. In sickle cell anemia, blood is also chronically low on oxygen. Chronic deprivation of the oxygen-rich blood can damage nerves and organs in the body, including the kidney, liver, and spleen, and organ damage can be fatal. Okay, so there are sometimes jaundice is usually present with sickle cell anemia. Okay. Blindness. Sickle cell can block tiny blood vessels that supply the eyes. Over the time, this can damage to the portion of the eye that process visual images, retina, and lead to the blindness. Okay. Leg ulcer will cause open sores called ulcers on the legs. Then gallstone. Red blood cells produce a substance called bilirubin. A high level bilirubin in your body can lead to gallstones. Like hepatobiliary tract complication like cholelithiasis, acute cholecystitis, biliary sludge is common with sickle cell anemia patient. Then gallstone occur up to 75% of the adults with sickle cell disease, and when asymptomatic should be wait and watch. Our waiting is important. Then priapism. So basically, sickle cell causing any complication due to its sickle shape RBC, which are blocked in the their tiny blood vessels in the brain, then stroke, pulmonary circulation, then it's caused pulmonary hypertension, and then if it is in spleen, liver like organ, then it's called organ damage, and can cause organ damage, and then gallstone manifestation. Next, prolonged episode may lead to irreversible changes including tissue necrosis, fibrosis, and erectile dysfunction. Then its treatment, administration of the aggressive oral and IV hydration and analgesia for episode of priapism lasting 4 hours or the longer, and consult with urologist for the episode of the priapism if it is more than 4 hours. Okay, so it's basically symptoms and complication, like in symptoms fever, pain, crisis, and in complications stroke, pulmonary hypertension, organ damage, gallstones, and priapism. And now we move to the diagnosis. How to diagnose the sickle cell anemia patient? First, CBC and peripheral smear. Second, sickling test. Third, HB electrophoresis, and fourth, PCR. Okay. First, PSCM, peripheral smear. The baseline complete blood count and peripheral blood smear in individual with sickle cell disease typically show the following findings. First, hemoglobin level 8 to 10 gram per deciliter. Hematocrit is 20 to 30%. Polychromasia and reticulocytosis. Typical reticulocyte count approximately 3 to 15%. Sickle cell, Howell-Jolly bodies. Nuclear remnants that have not been phagocytes due to the reduced splenic function. So there is a Howell-Jolly bodies present in the sickle cell anemia and mildly increased WBC count in the some cases. Okay. Now second is sickling test. The principle is sodium metabisulfate reduce the oxygen tension inducing to the typically sickle shape of the RBC. So sample is fresh blood with any anticoagulant and method mix 1 drop of blood with 1 drop of 2% sodium metabisulfate solution and see in a microscope slide for a sickle shape RBC. Okay, third is HB electrophoresis. Here we can see cathode and anode. Okay, if there is a normal HbA, then it's collected in the anode side, so it's a normal. In sickle cell anemia, there is a less HbA and more HbS, so HbS band is prominent. In sickle cell trait, both HbS and HbA band is visible. So if only one band with HbA, then it's a normal. If one band with HbS, then it's a sickle cell anemia. And if both band with 50-50% visibility, then it's a sickle cell trait. Okay. Thus, how we diagnose the sickle cell anemia. Now, what we can do and we can prevent. Okay, we can basically diagnose through antenatal counseling and genetic counseling also. So we can diagnose earliest as soon as possible. There are 2 tests can be used to help expectant parents to find out if the children is affected or not. Likewise, both parents are sickle cell trait. They have chances of getting a sickle cell anemia baby also 25%, with normal baby also 25%, and chances of sickle cell trait also 50%. So they are concerned about their baby. So we can do genetic counseling and then advise to the pre-diagnostic for a sickle cell anemia. First is amniocentesis, which is done usually at 14 to 16 weeks of pregnancy. Test a sample of the amniotic fluid in the womb of the genetic defects. The fluid and the fetus have in the same DNA. Under local anesthesia, a thin needle is inserted to the woman's abdomen into the womb, and about 20 mm of the fluid is withdrawn and sent for the lab for an evaluation. And this test result often take 1 to 2 weeks. Second, chorionic villus sampling or a CVS involves the removal and testing of a very small sample in the placenta during early pregnancy. The sample which contains the same DNA as the fetus is removed by a catheter or a FNAC, a fine needle aspiration inserted through the cervix, or by a fine needle inserted through the abdomen. The tissue is tested for a genetic changes identified and affected the family members. Results are usually available within 2 weeks. So we can also do genetic counseling for the sickle cell anemia, and if both parents are sickle cell trained, or either parents are sickle cell anemia and other is a normal. Okay. Then what's the treatment? Treatment is usually aimed at avoiding crisis, relieving symptoms and preventing complication. Babies and children aged 2 and younger with sickle cell anemia should make frequent visit with the doctor, and then older than 2 and adults with sickle cell anemia should be seen at least once a year according to the Centers of the Disease Control and Prevention for their routine follow-up. The treatments might include medication to reduce pain and prevent complication, and blood transfusion as well as bone marrow transplant. Okay. Then what we can do for the prevention? First, screening, prevention and immunization. First, we can do with a child with sickle cell anemia are at increased risk of invasive pneumococcal disease. So, prevention of the invasive pneumococcal disease is important. So, therefore, in addition to the recommended pneumococcal vaccination for all infants and children, those with anemia should receive prophylactic oral penicillin 125 mg twice daily for children younger than 3 years, and 250 mg BD for those 3 years and older. Once the diagnosis is established, this regimen should be continued at least 5 years of age. So we pneumococcal vaccines, so we can prevent pneumococcal infection, and other, if baby is less than 5 years, then we can give penicillin prophylaxis. If baby is aged less than 3 years, then we have to give 125 mg BD, and if more than 3 years, 3 to 5 years, we can give as 250 mg BD. Okay, so for pneumococcal, there is a pneumococcal vaccine, Prevnar, and penicillin prophylaxis up to 5 years of age. Okay, so basically prevention of the invasive pneumococcal disease, ensure that all persons with sickle cell disease have been vaccinated against streptococcal pneumonia, and ensure that the children 6 to 18 years of age who have functional or anatomical asthenia have received at least one dose of 13-valent pneumococcal conjugated vaccine. That means Prevnar. Okay, vaccine for a patient with sickle cell disease. Okay, this is a vaccine schedule. If a patient 6 months and older, influenza vaccine should be given annually. The pneumococcal conjugated vaccine, Prevnar, should be administered as for a children without sickle cell disease. The 23-valent pneumococcal vaccine should be administered if 2 years or older, with another dose at 3 to 5 years or 5 years after the first dose. If patient is 10 years or younger, then we have to repeat the dose at least 3 to 5. And if patient is older than 10 years, then we have to repeat the dose of the 5 years after the first dose. Okay. Then the meningococcal vaccine is recommended for the patient 2 years and older with sickle cell disease. Now second is we have to prevention for persons with sickle cell disease with vascular complications and particularly for a stroke. All persons with sickle cell anemia should be screened annually with transcranial Doppler ultrasonography beginning at 2 years of age and continuing until at least 16 years of age. So basically we start with 2 years of age with 16 years of age. If TCD is more than 200 cm per second, correlated with 10% annual increase in stroke risk, when TCD findings are marginal or conditional, like 170 to 199, or elevated than more than 200, the patient is considered a candidate for a blood transfusion therapy to prevent stroke and should be referred for a co-management with subspecialist. Now screening for a ischemic retinopathy. So we have basically covered the pneumococcal infection by vaccination and by penicillin prophylaxis. Second, we have considered for a stroke. We can screen by annually by transcranial Doppler. And third, of ischemic retinopathy, refer to patient with sickle cell disease to an ophthalmologist for annual dilatation retinal examination beginning at 10 years of age. Rescreen person with retinal examination finding at 1 to 2 years of interval. Screening for a renal disease, for a microalbuminuria and proteinuria with spot urine testing by 10 years of age, and refer person with proteinuria to a nephrologist for a further evaluation. So we have to watch for a retinal damage and also for a kidney damage. Okay. Now what's the treatment? It's the screening and the prevention part. Now we forward to medications. First, antibiotics. Children with sickle cell anemia may begin taking the antibiotic penicillin when they are about 2 months old and continue taking until they are at least 5 years of old. Doing so help to prevent infections such as pneumonia, basically pneumococcal pneumonia, which can be life-threatening to the infant or a child with sickle cell anemia. As an adult, if the spleen had removed and had pneumonia, you might to take penicillin throughout the life. Then pain relieving medication to relieve the pain during a sickle cell crisis. Then hydroxyurea. When taken daily, hydroxyurea reduces the frequency of the painful crisis and might reduce the need for a blood transfusion and hospitalization. Now hydroxyurea, how can it act? It basically increases the HbF level, hemoglobin, fetal hemoglobin increase. Okay, hydroxyurea therapy decrease sickle cell disease related complication, but is currently underused. Hydroxyurea works primarily by increasing the level of fetal hemoglobin, which does not sickle. This improves the several clinical outcomes such as decreasing the frequency of vaso-occlusive crisis and acute chest syndrome and reduce mortality, and decreasing the need for RBC transfusion and hospitalization. Hydroxyurea is rapidly absorbed and nearly complete bioavailability and require only once daily oral dosing. Now second is RBC transfusion. So in medication we have antibiotic, pain relieving, and for a penicillin, and hydroxyurea alternate day. Then now RBC transfusion. RBC transfusion, the first disease modifying therapy used for a sickle cell disease, reduce the percentage of the circulatory RBCs and with HBS, thereby treating acute symptomatic anemia as well as treating and preventing many STD complications. Okay, episodic transfusion is used acutely in response to sickle cell disease complication or prophylactically in the preparation for a general anesthesia and surgery. Long-term transfusion therapy is used when the sustained reduction of the HBS less than 30% is desired for a primary or a secondary prophylaxis for a specific sickle cell disease complication, most commonly stroke in the children. So we can desirably also transfuse for a prophylaxis of the complication. Basic and curative transplant. Because of the risk associated with bone marrow transplant, the procedure is recommended only for people, usually children, who have significant symptoms and problems with sickle cell disease. Okay, if the donor is found, the person with sickle cell anemia receive radiation or a chemotherapy, destroy or reduce his or her bone marrow stem cells from the donor are injected intravenously into the bloodstream of the person with sickle cell anemia to the bone marrow and begin generating new blood cells. The procedure requires a lengthy hospital stay. After the transplant, you will receive the drugs to help prevent the rejection of the donated stem cells. Even so, the body might reject the transplant and leading to a life-threatening complication. Now, experimental treatment. So, basically, till now, curative treatment is only bone marrow transplant, but we reserved it only for the children with actually very problematic sickle cell disease. Okay. Now, the experimental treatment is gene therapy. Scientists are studying new treatment for a sickle cell anemia, including gene therapy. Researchers are exploring whether inserting a normal gene into the bone marrow of the people with sickle cell anemia will result in normal hemoglobin or not. Scientists are also exploring the possibility of turning off the defective gene while reactivating another gene responsible for the production of the fetal hemoglobin, a type of hemoglobin found in newborns. So we can prevent sickle form cells that forming, and potential treatment using gene therapy are long way off to the however. That's fine. Thank you. Any question?